Working for you. A weekly talk radio program which highlights developments of national interest and the activities of your St. Kitts Nevis government. Join host Roy Williams as he presents news, views, reports, and interviews about everything regarding the activities of the Team Unity government and the building of our communities and the development of St. Kitts Nevis. Tune in and call in to interact with your government and share your views regarding the upward forward development of your community and our beautiful Twin Island Federation. Working for You is weekly, every Wednesday live from 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. on ZIZ Radio, Win FM, and Sugar City FM with rebroadcast on participating stations. Working for You.
Good afternoon and welcome to Working for You. I am Roy Williams. Thank you very much for tuning in to today's program. Wherever you are very welcome. Today we are having some very nice rain, which is very good for the earth and is good for those especially who work in the agriculture department. And today we have the Department of Agriculture here. So it's a good thing that it's raining. They will be discussing, of course, the work of the Department of Agriculture and the importance that agriculture plays to food security and our economy and so on, our livelihood, which is extremely important. I have officials from the Department of Agriculture, senior officials, that is from the department, and I will introduce them for you. I have the director in the Department of Agriculture, Mr. Melvin James. Dr. Tracy Challenger, who is Chief Veterinarian and Head of Livestock Sub-Program, and Mr. Jeffrey Berry, who is a Livestock Production Officer. A pleasant welcome to all of you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Williams. It's my pleasure.
Right, and this Working for You program comes on the heels of the Department of Agriculture hosting its annual review and planning meeting, which was yesterday at the St. Kitts Marriott Hotel, under the theme Creating Partnership and Linkages for Sustainable Agriculture. Some very, very key words there. Partnership, linkages, and sustainable. Sustainable. Right. So, the first thing, of course, is to tell me about this annual review and planning meeting, how it went, and what were some of the key things coming out of it, or you know, what's the objective of holding such an annual review and planning meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Lesroy, and greetings to the viewing and listening public, the fans and practitioners of agriculture, and all of us who have an interest in food, local food, food security, and what takes place in agriculture at home and abroad. My name, to repeat, is Mr. Melvin James, Director of Agriculture. Yesterday, the 25th of February, the department held its annual review and planning meeting. It's been a number of years now that we, early in the year, as it were, have an accountability seminar where we invite, as much as possible, all stakeholders involved in agriculture, the farmers themselves, brokers, persons involved in transportation, persons involved in processing, marketing, sales, what have you. We try to capture everyone who has an interest directly and indirectly. And indeed, that's all of us, because in the end, we're all consumers of food. So we gather and we state what we did last year. One can compare that to what we should have achieved. So we don't just let the year pass, but we explain ourselves, what we did, why, what we could have done better, and looking forward towards the future. So I usually give a report on our achievements. In the past, it was a report on everything that you did. If you move a rock, you mentioned it. But that is not really always vital. So we tend to pick out the most critical things. And of course, one would want to know, did you achieve to and to what extent? So we also look at the factors that affected us. And so this year, for example, we felt like we achieved a lot, because usually the measure of what we do has to do with the amount of crop and livestock that we produce. It has been almost 20 years now that we measure ourselves on that basis. And when you look at the long term, like 5-year period, and you also look at the immediate, you compare last year with this year. And I must say to you that our total output in 2019 saw an increase of 37% over 2018. And for me, that's excellent. In the 4 or 5 years before that, we were marginal, we were borderline, and mostly because of uncertainties in the weather, mostly because of our challenges with monkeys, and again, even the difficulty, lack of resources. I mean, one of the things farmers, when you really get down to a discussion with them, you find that resources, money, or the availability, the ability to purchase inputs and stuff like that is an issue. But through it all, we think that we had much relief in 2019 for two main factors. The monkey program that was halted for a good 2 or so years, we were able to resume it in a limited way. Limited as it was, we were able to take out some couple hundred, about 800 monkeys. And we think that we saw a surge because of that. Additionally, and of course, we didn't do a study, but government hurricane relief in the amount of 1 million had gone into several hundred farmers' hands. And I believe some of them would have reinvested. And I think those, plus our own input in trying to work with the farmers, would have helped them to show an increase. It's their thing. All we're doing, we're tracking what they are doing. We do not have a direct control. We are not farmers. We are not producers. Truth be told, we are mainly advisors. But you track what they do. And our farmers were able to increase their output despite all of the difficulties that they would have had. Lest I don't speak all afternoon, let me just quickly say that we also track what happens in livestock. Not just crops. Livestock is where we had several challenges. You know, you might have heard in the common name, the tick, that really surged. And I have Dr. Challenger and Mr. Berry who would speak more to them. However, I'll say that while sheep and goat numbers and total yield would have gone down slightly, cattle, for example, the total output went up. And we're happy for that. The other bright light in the livestock sector is that we do not have any record, any official knowledge that eggs were imported in the country. We have been striving for some time to be self-sufficient in a guarded way, because we know that egg products like egg beaters and other things to substitute for eggs is still imported. But when we're talking about the table eggs, we have not issued any documents for importation for 2 consecutive years. And we give the kudos to our farmers. Despite their challenges, they have been able to sustain a level of output that has been able to keep it buoyant, so that neither the hotels nor the supermarkets have had reason to import. So the meeting was about that. And we also focused on other highlights, control of feral animals, our goat breeding program, tick control, and we had an excellent showing. A number of persons, well, put it simply, we were oversubscribed. I didn't expect that many. and we reach our targets, and we surpass our target by a good 30%. My host, I had them worried how we're going to really accommodate everyone. In the end, we had a good meeting. There were back and forth discussions. Some persons had their own agendas, but I think all in all, we were able to make some good progress. I think I should stop at this point.
Okay, so you are lauding your achievements this time around as compared to previous times.
Certainly.
And you are satisfied with your achievements.
Yes.
As a department.
There's always much room for improvement, but you also have to look at the factors that exist, and you judge your achievements based on the factors. That's one level of judgment, and then you can also look at what if I had other inputs. So, those are two different kinds of criteria.
Because, of course, one of the concerns has always been that our food import bill is too high.
Way too high.
And especially for us, we have the elements that we don't really have to pay for. We have the sun and we have the rain. Mind you, we've been getting less rain and more drought conditions. That also affect farmers.
Certainly.
And so on, climate change and all of that. But we bring a boat in here from Dominica on a weekly basis with ground provisions. Now,
yes.
I mean,
yeah, Mr. Host, very often when we talk about imports, we mention our neighbors. The boat comes on average once per week. Although I'll tell you, if you go up the dock, when the boat leave, we basically they empty it. Especially when you take out the bananas, the space that you take out the bananas from, you could kind of like put a school bus inside there. It's quite a lot. I didn't bring we have the data in the office. I didn't work with it. The planned quarantine unit that checks the boat has it. But I'll tell you
what that tells me, Mr. James, is that Dominica is producing enough, more than subsistence, so that they are even able to export to other islands. Do you think that perhaps one day we will be in such a situation where our agricultural produce is at a level that we don't even have, we have enough for us and we have enough to share, to sell to other neighboring islands? Do you think so? Do you think we are doing enough?
No, we're not doing enough. It is not difficult. We can do that in short order, in the medium term. The way these things happen, those things go by policy and planning. That is not an issue for the farmers. It's a policy decision. What a country is going to do with its agriculture. You remember, for example, there was a time that we were doing that kind of thing in sugar and tobacco. The resources went into that. So if we really want to do something like that, then we have to rethink our strategies. Obviously, you have to see more investment concerns. Government may be the one to invest, or if not, maybe private individuals. But it has to be a thrust where we're aiming to commercialize. Right now, our agriculture is almost subsistence. And one of the things I'm lobbying for is that the time has come for us as a country to give more significance to agriculture. And any and every political party should be of that view, because as you said, we need to produce a lot more for our own sustainability, for our own nutrition, for our own survival. There's a thing you call food security.
The truth of the matter is that we gave a lot of consideration to agriculture for years, hundreds of years, probably over 400 years. We were monocrop, more or less monocrop, sugarcane. We gave a lot of emphasis and consideration, and a lot of energies was really put into it. What did we achieve by it? that can be debated.
But at one time it was leading the country. I mean, 80+% of our GDP came from agriculture. The jobs in St. Kitts all came through agriculture.
Yes.
There was a time that agriculture was the leading economic activity.
But monocrop agriculture.
But at the time, it had the label king. It tells you what a king is.
It had the label king, but then it almost became a pauper. In the sense that from king to pauper, in the sense that we were losing heavily in terms of sugar. And that had been happening for years. There was a sort of a glut on the market. People are producing, sugar substitutes and beet sugar and all kinds of things, and we were not making any money.
But that's not unique to
it is not unique to us.
It's a threat to monoculture or to a single activity. And even now, we haven't demonstrated that we've learned, because we've moved away from that kind of agriculture, fine, but we have kept the emphasis on one leading economic activity. And so the cycle can repeat itself. And that is where we are advised to divest.
Yes, and there has to be diversification, because if in 2005, that is like 15 years ago, we decided to do away with the sugar industry, which was our main industry. And we are now in the services-based industry, that of tourism. Right? And you're correct, we don't want it to be a monoculture again, where all the emphasis is placed on tourism. And that is why now agriculture has to look for ways of diversification away from the sugar plantation.
Certainly.
And the linkages and the partnerships in which you spoke about must go along with the sector that is bringing in most money now, which is the tourism sector. So therefore, how it is that we can get our farmers, for example, to get into the supermarkets and the hotels and to get their produce there. Sometimes the hotels don't want their produce because they're saying, oh, maybe they're not of the best quality and all kinds of things like that. How can we create more linkages and partnerships with the businesses and so on in the Federation?
We have an initiative in place, 2020, about linkages with the end users, the supermarkets, the hotels, and we've called it a market access initiative. It is something which is challenging, because what we want to do is be able to give the supermarkets, the hotels, the confidence that we'll deliver as we have said. We'll bring X produce at Y time. We will work the specifics out with them. It is not an easy thing. For one, we have challenges, as we said. Uncertainties come from the weather, the monkeys, the pigs, sometimes prey their larceny, even your own practices and pests and diseases and so on. So you have those factors. In addition to that, we have a kind of reputation to overcome, because a lot of these entities, they don't fully trust our farmers to go to that level of commitment. Some of them may not necessarily this particular breed of farmers, but they could have had bad experiences even in the past, and they're guided by that. I believe so, because, for example, we were planting some cabbages. I think I gave that example before, but I find it so important to tell it again. We got a particular supermarket. We carried them out in the field at planting stage. We had the seeds in our hand, and in front of them we put the seeds in the ground. And several times we carried them out in the field with us as the crop grew. And we're always quoting them in terms of their purchasing from us, and they see the crop, they said, oh, wholesome, it looks good, it's great. And up until the crop matured, and then we expected them, as we had discussions with them, we expected that they would purchase, and they didn't. Even though they saw the crop, it's not like they were just waiting for us to bring it. So there is certain issues of trust and confidence. It's a difficult thing. Some other countries have achieved it in one way or the other. We're going to be aiming for it because we need it. And despite of whatever challenges we have, we want to work hard on that to build some more linkages for ourselves and our farmers.
Yeah. Now, Dr. Challenger, you're the chief vet for the government. And, of course, you know, we talk about crop farming, but we talk about animal husbandry as well, and how we need to improve upon that. For example, we import so much chicken. Can we probably start getting more into broilers and so on, so that we can supply the local market with chicken instead of importing so much chicken? And on top of that, there are challenges that we have in terms of disease and all of that sort of thing. One of the recent challenges to livestock has been that of such a big word, sometimes I can't even pronounce it, dermatophilosis.
Yes.
And you heard farmers, livestock farmers, complaining about this skin disease, and that their animals were dying. And of course, if the animals are dying, they put a lot of investment into the animals. And if the animals are dying, they're losing heavily in terms of their earnings and so on from that type of a farming. So what is dermatophilosis? What is it?
Okay, good afternoon.
And how has it affected livestock farmers? And what is being done to counteract this problem?
Okay, good afternoon, listeners. I'm a bit hoarse, but I will get through. Dermatophilosis. This is a bacterial disease. Okay, it's a gram-positive bacteria, but it's a peculiar bacteria. It doesn't follow the conformities of that class. Okay. Now, it causes the skin disease, dermatophilosis. It's a bacteria that is found on the skin of animals, in the epithelial cells. And in a normal, healthy animal, an animal that is dewormed, vitamins and minerals, where the immune system is peak, and the skin, the integument is not broken, the animal will not be harmed by this disease. Once there's a break in the skin of the cattle, then the bacteria can penetrate and go systemic and cause disease. Now, the bacteria was here, it was always here, but the main vector, the mechanical vector, the main vector, which is the amblyomma tick, was not always here. And so when I joined the department in 1999, I met this problem with respect to the proliferation of the dermatophilosis and the tick. And then I was informed that they had lost the population, the livestock population was reduced to 500 or less. So the severity of the disease was justified a regional program to deal with this particular
No, you're speaking about the livestock population in total?
In total.
That would include cattle, sheep, goat?
Yes.
Yes.
In total, yeah.
In total. So, and this was happening in other Caribbean countries. And so there was a regional project called the Caribbean Amblyomma Project, a program that was instituted to reduce the exposure of the livestock population to the tick. Initially, the intent was to eradicate, but they soon realized that eradication was not possible. Since then, we've had, breaks. The main acaricide that is used to treat the tick, and that was used in the program. It's called Betical, and that has been the mainstay for the control of the amblyomma tick, and hence the spin-off effects would be control of dermatophilosis. Okay, because the tick has a very long mouth part, and it sinks deep into the skin of the animal, and so the disease gets into the bloodstream and becomes systemic. Controlling the tick, you control dermatophilosis. So, because we are not the manufacturers of Betical, and because Betical is so highly sought after on the international market, we now and again experience shortages in the procurement of the Betical. And unfortunately, it has happened again, and this is the third time that we have excuse me.
Okay.
This is the third time we have had that sort of experience with respect in shortage of Betical. And so whenever we have a shortage of Betical, compounded by rain, which has always been the case, then you're going to have a flare-up in the population of the tick, and then you're going to also have a flare-up in the incidence of the dermatophilosis. So we jumped from below 300 cases in 2016 to over 1,200 cases in 2019.
So it means then that there has been an increase in the livestock population, but there's also an increase. You will have to get an increase in terms of the vertical to address some of the problems, of course, with the disease.
Yes. So when we control the tick and we control the dermatophilosis, you find that the population, the livestock population increases, and increases drastically. But then what happens? We get more roaming animals. And then the cycle, like, it starts all over again, you know. And there's, whenever we're out of Betical, all of the predisposing factors are there. And so you'll find that it will take no time for the amblyomma tick, the population of the prevalence of the amblyomma tick, to increase.
Is there an alternative to Betical, since it's just so sought after?
We have other alternatives to Betical, okay? We have the synthetic pyrethroids. Those are good, and they're thought to be safer acaricides to use. We have, I know of 3, cypermethrin, flumethrin, and dalmetrin. Of the 3, we have 2, which is the cypermethrin and the flumethrin. Okay. And so we offer those for sale to the public. But because of the flare-up that took place, that started in 2017, culminating and, you know, the complaints of the farmers and so forth, and we understand they lost because they've been through it before. Some of the farmers from the initial outbreak are still in farming and would have suffered during those 3 cycles of increased prevalence of the tick. And so, you know, we are sympathetic, and we recommend to the ministry that we should implement a program, a treatment program for the tick and Betical, free of cost, for the farmers who have suffered, and not just the farmers who have suffered, but also the farmers who have done well in preventing the animals from dying. Right? So we have to reward those that lost and those that did not have any loss, because they were able to save the animals. They kept the animals in good condition. They did worm, they gave multivitamins, they came to the department, they sought recommendations on what to do and so forth. So
okay, good. So that leads me to another thing in terms of sort of an education, sort of an awareness program for farmers to be able to pick up, for example, signs and symptoms when their animals are, you know, are not well, and what they should do, and so on. Because you said, of course, if you're able to spot the sign of something, a symptom that your animal is ill, then you'll be able to act, you'll be able to know what to do, and that might lead to saving the life of the animal.
Yes, as recently as 2019, we had a workshop for livestock farmers, an animal health workshop and a production workshop. So during that workshop, we'll speak and address dermatophilosis. We'll also speak and address other diseases that are not necessarily here and that we wouldn't want to come here. And we teach the farmers the signs of these diseases, because if they come here, they're going to be very devastated. So as recently as 2019, we had a workshop on that.
No, you have a vet lab, right?
Yes.
What goes on at the lab? What sort of research takes place there? Because you would be in charge of that.
Yes.
As the chief vet. Does it need upgrading? Do you have, you know, the things that you need for the lab and so on?
Let me correct you there. The lab is not completed as yet. The physical structure still has not been completed as yet. But the intent for the lab, see, my role as a CVO is to prevent the introduction of diseases, especially those diseases that have a great impact on the economy. So we're talking avian influenza, foot and mouth, and so forth. So as a regulator, I have to put the policies and keep updating the policies to prevent the introduction of those diseases. Then my second most main role is to conduct surveillance. We have not been able to conduct surveillance because of the absence of a lab. We cannot do surveillance without having a diagnostic lab. And so we have been lobbying for a lab, a veterinary diagnostic lab, for many years, since I started working at the department. And it was only in 2017 when we got the project approved to build the lab. Okay, and so the lab is expected to be completed in about next year and a half, and then we'll be able to implement the surveillance that we need for food safety and for the safety or the animal health status of our animals. Remember, more than 60% of diseases in humans comes from animals, and therefore we need to conduct our ground surveillance to see what is circulating in our stock, so that we can coordinate with public health as to when an outbreak of this particular bacteria may occur, and to stop it before it happens.
Okay, suppose I have a pig farm, and at Christmas time, when my hogs are very fat and jolly, I butcher them.
At home, you mean?
At home. And I butcher for sale to people in my community. Is that okay, or what is it that I need to do in terms of, because people can get sick if the meat is sick? Do I have to get a special certificate? Do you have to make sure that there's some inspection done of the meat and so on before I can actually sell it to others?
Okay, if you're gonna slaughter, we call that backyard slaughter. If you're gonna do that, I know, speaking to the food safety officer, that is the officer that is responsible for food safety, public health, Mr. Leader, he would tell you that their policy no longer allows backyard slaughter. If the intent is for sale, for commercial.
Okay.
If it is for your own personal consumption, then you can do backyard slaughter. Your household, you can do backyard slaughter. But once it is intended to for sale for the public, that's a no-no. It must be inspected. It must receive both ante-mortem inspection, that is the inspection before the animal is slaughtered, and post-mortem inspection after the animal has been slaughtered. And at post-mortem inspection, if the carcass is not deemed to be human or fit for human consumption, the whole carcass will be condemned. Sometimes you might only have parts being condemned. But I know public health, they don't make no joke with that. I'm telling you. They don't.
Right, but sometimes it might be hard to detect if someone has not done a backyard slaughter, for example, and I'm buying their goat and so on, I'm buying mutton and so on the street, because now we have a lot of street vendors selling food and so on. How can I be 100% absolutely sure that this meat that they're selling, or local meat, has been inspected and so on? Of course, you check the monkeys too. We eat monkey meat.
That's called game meat.
Game meat. So that
doesn't apply.
And wild hogs.
Wild hogs, they do bring them into the abattoir for slaughter.
Mm-hmm.
They do. So they do receive both ante-mortem and post-mortem inspection.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because as you said earlier, the concern is that a lot of, or most human diseases originate with animals. Mm-hmm. For example, we can think now of the corona virus that has become almost a global threat. Mm-hmm. It has reached Europe, and God forbid, I am sure, when these things happen, at some point it's going to reach here too. It's already in Latin America.
Mm-hmm. and I really want to drive home the point with the coronavirus, and why it is important for us to have food security, Because, let me tell you, when we put all the eggs in one basket, what we're doing with tourism, let coronavirus show up in St. Louis.
It affects our tourism, it affects our economy, it affects everything.
You see those 3 ships and some 4 ships that we just seeing out there bringing us in on.
It's a terrible thing. But of course, we have the animals. We're talking about animal health. And let us talk about plant health.
Animal production.
Animal production. And so on. Mr. Jeffrey, your livestock production in terms of the what is being done to have more production of livestock for our consumption for food security. I heard that you're breeding goats and so on. Tell us something about that.
Right. I want to say greeting to everybody out there in Radio Land. The livestock production aspect of it is fairly new to the Department of Agriculture. In fact, when the department started, they were really concentrating on crops. So we had extension officers who were practically dealing with crops. So it's fairly new. And the role of the production officer is really to develop programs that would increase livestock production to contribute to the increase in the GDP to the country. And the government sight fit to offer the technical support to the farmers to increase livestock production. And we looked at it 2 ways. One, from an opportunity point of view, we will tie into the linkages and partnership with our team. And I'll just give you a quick example. In 2017 to 2019, goat meat was imported just over 31,000 kilograms. The same time, we produce just over 5,000 kilograms. So there is a gap of close to 16,000 kilograms. There's a gap. There's an opportunity. So you can look at it from a business point of view to get private investors or persons going into it from a business point of view. The other aspect we looked at was rural development. Livestock production, agriculture on the whole is an integral part of rural development. How does it affect the livelihood of the persons who live in the rural area? So these are existing farmers. We look at the production system. When we started to do real livestock extension, the production system was so poor that it was questionable. Ties into public health and inspection and stop slaughtering of backyard slaughtering to the abattoir slaughtering, so that all the animals would be go through inspection. You had production system, for example, in pigs, that was just on mud. Farmers fed them anything that they wanted. Compared to now, where the production system has changed drastically, where most of the pigs are reared on concrete slabs, given iron, look at the feed that they're feeding under our supervision. All of the production system is more or less supervised, overseen by the extension officers at the Department of Agriculture. So the new farmers, from our technical assistance that livestock is given, for new farmers who want to go in from a business point of view, from an opportunity point of view, these are farmers who would be getting lands for the first time. And you would go in and offer them assistance such as where would they place their houses on the land that are given based on certain phenomenon, based on certain criteria. For example, access to the road. How close is the road to where you're putting your pen? For example, you're putting on a poultry operation. You have a lot of feed to head to your chicken house. So you need that house to be built as close as possible to the road, to the water supply, to the electricity supply. So these are the technical aspect. Instead of a farmer just going in and start doing any old thing, we would offer it to create it to be built in a more efficient and effective way. Similarly, so if you look at the farmer is placing his house here based on the technical advice, there's also something known as the orientation of the building, as to how do I turn the building. It's located here, but how do I turn the building based on certain natural phenomena, for example, sunrise and sunset, wind direction. Because let us say a poultry house, and the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. You wouldn't want that house to be getting most of the sunlight when the sun rises and when the sun sets, because only half of the house will be utilized at that time. So these are the technical advice that we would be giving to the farmers. For the existing farmers now, rural development, we would look at the nutrition. They're already into existence, so we want to improve the production system, to improve the output. So we look at the nutrition. What they normally used to feed the pigs, they go outside and they cut some wines from the thing. They would get raw potato, raw breadfruit, and that sort of thing, which is, no, those food are good, but you need to cook them for the animal and then feed the animal. So you look at nutrition, what they're feeding all the animals. You would look at the housing, you know.
So what you're feeding the animals can also make the animals sick.
And not only the animals, and make you sick, because what
precisely, it's a chain, it's a whole chain.
Mm-hmm. So it's very, very important. I mean, for example, if the animals are reared close to where you have exposed to lead, lead get into the system of the animal, is not really coming out quickly. It stays in, so it is passed on to you as well. So, and water, it's amazing, because especially now in cattle production, the farmers, most of the farmers back then, transported a few barrels of water to the cattle. And some will do it on a daily basis, and some will do it to the basis, maybe on a weekly basis. But cattle is supposed to drink at least 20 gallons of water per day. Now, if you have a few drums of water, 45-gallon drums of water, and you're heading 10 gallons of water, 5 of those drums to a farm that has 75 heads of cattle, you would realize the injustice that you're doing to the animal, but not only the injustice to the human part of the rearing of the animal, but also feed intake and water intake are related. If the animal is thirsty, it's not going to eat. It's not going to eat.
It needs water.
Right. So you get the picture where we're looking at the whole aspect of increasing the productivity line, so that at the end of the day, we look at breeding. From time to time, we would need to introduce new genetic material, new blood, because saints is small. And over time, you would quickly realize that all the animals are related. And then we start getting inbreeding. Inbreeding has its good and bad. But one of the negative aspects of inbreeding is that it's stunted growth. Mm-hmm. So it comes back to the example that I was giving earlier about the production of goat meat. The 5,000, over 5,000 kgs that we produce was from 600 heads of goats that was weighing 25 pounds because of inbreeding. our program that we might come to later, that we're introducing new genetic material to increase productivity in the weight, the dress weight, the carcass weight of the animal. Same number of animals, increase productivity, a heavier animal, so we're changing the live weight from 25, 35 pounds to 60 pounds, and you would realize you'll easily reach up to about 16,000.
Right, so you have some new breed of ram goats.
Right.
We want to call them that.
And I must say, because I have to put in a plug here too, a few years back we also imported pigs to do the same effect. We brought in about 80 pigs, right, just to introduce new blood into the production system. Right. So now we're doing the goats. So we have the bull goat, which is a meat goat, and we make. And again, when we look at the whole aspect of increasing production, we look at the aspect of selection and mating. So when we go out on the farm, we're actually looking at your best looking females to have them as the mothers, right? Because you can do selection from two things. You can do it genotypically if you know what breed of animal it is, but you can also do it phenotypically. You're seeing the animal, so you look. This one the farmers can do very well, because they don't know the genetic makeup of the animal that is on the farm. So you look and you'll see the animal that is looking real healthy and real nice, and you use that as the future parent. So you select that, and you would now mate it with the imported genetic material. And so it's a form of development in terms of the breeding technique that you're using. Coupled, it must go hand in hand with feeding. Because you could have the best genetic makeup, but if it is not fed properly, water, husbandry, it's not going to be performing to the true potential.
Yes. Now I know that the department offers a lot of technical support to farmers, and sometimes financial help, and so on. The government offers to farmers in terms of concessions, maybe on animal feed and other things.
Yes, yes.
But at the very same time, how many farmers do we have? And is there a process by which farmers can register? And what are the benefits of registration?
All told, we have about close to 600 persons on our farm register. Just under half of that, I think, would be livestock. There are more people practicing crop farming. But I still think that that list could be further disaggregated, because there are lots of persons who keep a few animals in their spare time, some who do a little crop planting in their off days, and they tout themselves as farmers. But I think we need to distinguish between those and the persons who are just about full-time. The persons who are full-time and who really make their money, do their livelihood through farming, it's not much more than maybe about 50 persons.
Okay.
And most of those are in the crop sector. Of course, you have some established poultry farms, right, that are full-time, and then you have the other large animals, sheep, goat, pigs.
Poultry as in eggs.
We also have some broilers.
Some broilers as
yes.
well.
But the broilers, 2-3 years ago, the broiler industry was growing. You're moving from 1 or 2 persons and 500-600 birds to like several thousand. But it has dwindled as well in the more recent times. I think one of the sectors that has been really challenged by the feed price, feed costs, is the broiler sector, for one reason or the other, and I think it accounted for their dwindling in size. There was a time that you could go into the supermarkets and you could find local chicken. In fact, I think one of the farmers actually had a label for his chicken, but now, you know, it has cut back.
Organic?
It has cut back.
We call it organic?
They had a name for
I know.
his company's name. He had perhaps it's organic, but I think he had his company's name on it, you know. but I haven't been seeing it recently. So apart from the overall number of farmers, we have some who are the ones who really trying to feed the country, as opposed to those who are saving $1 by making something for themselves.
Right. Now, while we might have all of these individual farmers, just like how we had sugarcane, and sugarcane was the national industry, do you think that, for example, we can have a national agricultural program?
Certainly.
A national farm program, for example?
I am hoping,
on a wider scale.
I'm hoping, Mr. Williams, that in my tenure as director, and not that it has to take a very long time, because I think we need a proper program like yesterday. So it should happen now. When you look, these things are, you can always compare these things as one, contribution to GDP, or two, you can look at the proportion of the budget that is invested into a particular sector. Right now, in terms of contribution to GDP, we're not doing more than 1%. Mm-hmm. In terms of the investment or the share of the budget was $7 or $6 or something $100,000. I think we're getting like $5 or $6 million. So you know, it's pretty small, but we need an investment plan, not just from the department, because we from the department can't finance it, but we need an agreement as a country, a policy, and then we need to do certain things in the infrastructure and also with the farmers. I think once we're going to build the industry on our present farmers, then I'm going to propose that a good way to address a lot of their concerns is to have, I call it an informal, non-conventional learning type of institution. In other words, you're not going like you're dressing up, you're going to the college daily. It's gone a lot of field school out in the field, but we are imparting genuine scientific knowledge, and you not just attending, you have to demonstrate that you have absorbed and that you're practicing. So there comes a point where you will have to show that you understand the scientific way of doing things, and I am suggesting that once you show that competence, you're given a certificate to show that you've achieved, and then once you've achieved, you have access to government incentives for the program, whether it's duty-free, whether it's a loan at 5%, 0%, whether it's sending you for further training, setting you up on a small farm. The country will decide what the package will be. But once you have passed the program, you get full entitlement to the package. For example, I understand in Morocco, persons who they accept young persons into farming, they are fully funded, 100% funded. But they know that those persons have the craft, they have the skill, and so when you go out there, you can show results for what is invested in you. And I think we need to do something like that so that we can know for sure that when you invest, there's returns, because we really need it. As you said, we're doing like 20% or less of what we need. That cannot be good for our country.
Yeah, and I like what you said, because farming must be results oriented.
Certainly.
If I am not seeing the incentives, if I am not, making any sort of a good return on all the work that I put in, because it's not easy, to work in sun and to work in rain and to be, and so on, then it is really a turn off. Canada, for example, has a national farm program, and we have people from here that go to Canada to work on their farms, to pick apples and all of that sort of a thing. Mind you, they wouldn't do farming here, but they will go to Canada and farm because of the opportunity that is basically provided to them.
Do they make significant sums out of it?
I don't know what they make. I do know that they go there and they have to contend with weather that is not like here. Of course.
And the program is still active?
And the program is still active.
What I find from a livestock point of view, because what I said earlier might have been all rosy in terms of the production point of view. And I can say that from a farmer's point of view as well, from a production point of view, they have learned and they have executed. I think our weakness in the whole scheme of things is marketing. And upfront, we are weak. We are weak. We need a lot of attention to be spent on marketing. We might look at the private sector and see how they do things, because marketing, it do take a lot of money when it comes to marketing. We might need to put a policy in place that once it's available, we have to have a change of mind, our local change of mind in terms of consuming what we're eating. You know, we talk about children getting obese and so on, based on all the imports and fast food and so on and so on. But are they really consuming when things are available? Good things that are available, are they really consuming? So also the mindset that we have to start to consume
it locally.
From a marketing point of view, that aspect is troublesome to me. You know, of recent we've been getting some little licks from the farmers and so on, but it stems from marketing. Some of the pork farmers, they're good. They're really good in producing pork. Some have ceased, some have cut down the operation because the pork sales have dropped. Now, what are we trying to do, and especially for this year? The barbecue people who are doing mostly ribs when it comes to pork product, we're trying, because we had some training in the Navy, so we have choice cuts, to take the whole pork and see if we can put it on the barbecue grill. Now the thing about it is that everybody accustomed to ribs, and when you buy pork, you get ribs. But you got to educate the people. When you buy the ribs, 50% or even more is bones. You really look at it, it's bones. You're just eating the muscles between the ribs. So if you can see this nice lean meat on the grill, this is the substance that your money is being paid for. So we want to implement a drive with a few of the barbecue vendors. Come to the abattoir, see the choice cuts, and we go somewhere so that when the pork is on the grill, instead of using just ribs, we get the people, we change the concept of the person's mind who's spending their money, that you're buying more meat than really bones. So it's all these little techniques. But it stems to marketing. At the end of the day, when the farmer finish producing, which again, they're doing a good job, they need the product to be sold. We need linkages with the Chamber of Industry and Commerce. Because some of these farmers who are depending on farming for their livelihood, the rural development, they are going to the other members of the Chamber of Industry's business to buy clothing, books, vehicles. If they can't get their produce sold, how are they going to the other aspect to buy? How are they going to get the money? So it really needs these linkages.
Yes, they do. And on that point, we are going to open the phone lines. I'm sure there are people listening, farmers out there, and others who may want to ask a question or to make a comment. The numbers to call, the overseas number is 1-718-577-2916. That is 1-718-577-2916. And the local number is 465-2555. 465-2555. We welcome your calls. Right. Now, farmers face a lot of challenges. They not only have to put up with the elements and all of that, the diseases and so on, but we have a particular problem in St. Kitts. Monkeys. Working for you, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Williams.
Good afternoon.
And Mr. Agriculture and Miss Animal Doctor.
Good afternoon.
Good program as usual. Now, a question to Mr. Agriculture. Now, we could say once ago, but now we got to look forward. Do the Agriculture Department have the power to demand a piece of land, a clean field from the government as a listen? We need this here to do some food agriculture in it. Like, we used to have yam gong and potato gong and every sugar estate. And we used to have food all year round. We never had to import nothing. Well, that has gone. And it's 15 years now since the sugar industry closed. And from the time it closed, a lot of us been saying to the farmer administration who were there, let us use the cane field, lemon plant, bananas and all this kind of thing, and let us feed ourselves. Nobody take us on. Well, can this agriculture department that you're working in, can you all demand that you get a piece of land and do that? And the next thing, we need to go back to animal farming, because they used to use the dung from the cattle, the horse, the goat, the sheep, everything, and spread them in the cane field along with the mud grass and the filter press, and our cane used to look good and grow good and healthy, and our food used to be healthy. So once we have the animal, they will produce the manure for the ground, and we would not have to use these chemicals that coming from overseas. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you, my fellow villager. If I have the voice correct,
Working for you, good afternoon.
Yes, working for you, that's right.
Yes, sir.
I want to touch on three things. Number one, I want to ask Mr. James, if when you have a lot of pork in the country, if they don't put a ban like how it used to be under Donald Cable, Billy Batson, Cookie Warner, and all the Warners them who was controller out of Sandy Point. And the old man Joseph from Newtown. I want to know if things change. That's why the other day you had Rainy, you tricked me. You tricked me. You didn't tell me that you're bringing the customs, because the customs need to come to the altar and ask some questions and answer some questions. I was so mad, because it's long time I'm waiting for them and working for you. And they could tell themselves they get away. Because I was a man used to be around the customs. And where we see around the customs is very frightening and telling. Because customs supposed to be a stiff place, especially have a little lenient for people who is not big sellers like importers and so. And you ain't seeing that. And in this 24th century, asking the Prime Minister to come better with that. Talk to the controller. Well, anyway, let me get to the point.
Yes, please.
I want to talk about the beef, the pork, and the mutton. If you all don't indicate to the customs when the local man them got these things and tell them to put a ban, that's how it used to be. But things change.
I hear you.
Things ain't supposed to change.
I hear you.
Come on, man. These guys coming to the circus and they don't come with these things to the circus, because only in the circus it look like it's the quarter conscience. And I'm not going to stand for this conscience here, you know. Mr. James,
thank you.
The country needs peanuts. And don't tell me about all people that thief the peanuts. We got police and army, man. If they go up and down in the mountain pulling up the marijuana, they should be able to farm, go out and hike at night time and get these things. I can't be buying a bag of nuts and half the nuts ain't good. And it's not for you. That's why working for you, working for all of us.
All right, Jamdo.
So blind, they better go and act dead.
And I didn't trick you. You were not listening.
Okay. Can I respond?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Jamdo, let me just go to the question that went first, right? Land for agriculture, and I think it's the Ministry of Sustainable Development that allocates land. But land has been allocated for agriculture. Now, it might get a lot of drawback for this. I think presently, although agriculture have lots of problems, I do not consider land to be one of our problems. We have a lot of land. The problem is people are asking for the lands, they're getting the lands, and they're not farming them properly. Almost any piece of land you see up in the mountain, some of it full of grass, and when you you go up there and you try to claim it, somebody comes in there after and says, this is my land. So what we have to do really is to take back the lands from people who are not using them properly. We're not yet at a stage where we're out of space. No, we're not. But what's happening is that people are not utilizing them well enough. Now, peanuts. There was a few years back in the more recent times, jam down, the price of peanuts on the US market, a bag of seed nuts, the peanuts that you're going to put in the ground, it was very expensive. And peanuts is one of the things that we don't even buy a lot of. There's a local gentleman, he's also a farmer, who is the main seller of peanuts. But they were so expensive that he didn't buy any. I tried buying some, and I was selling them for almost $700 a bag. And not surprisingly, I couldn't get them sold. And that is a part of the reason why peanut production had gone down, because the seed material was too expensive. But last year, 2019, it seems as though the price came a lot more reasonable. In 2018, we had produced 9.1 metric tons of peanuts, and in 2019, 20.5 metric tons. That's an increase of well over doubling, an increase of 125%. So if we continue like this, we will be able to get back to some heights. But in 2019, we had quite a bit of peanuts in the market. Yes, we cannot ban things anymore. That's old school. The international laws have changed. So even if Mr. Cookie still around, right? If Miss Cookie, no? Pass? Even though those old custom guys were in office, they will have to come with new techniques. For example, one of the things we can do is put a very high tax on things that are coming in. You know, that makes them unattractive. You could maybe carry up the tax 3 times so that they're real expensive. But you really can't ban them. If the company want to bring them, they say will bring them. And that also applies to what we were talking about, market access. People might ask, can you do that for pork? Yeah, we can do that for pork. But again, the pork that comes in specialized cuts. And we get into this specialized cut thing. And Mr. Berry, is the same problem that the local broiler industry has too, you know, where a lot of the local birds, people try to sell them as whole fowl, and kitchens want all legs alone, you know, all wings alone. That's what we're accustomed to, and so it challenges the new emerging local industry. We have to help to change, to help our infantile industries to go.
Right. No, the monkey.
The monkey.
We have a lot of, you know, animals that roam. Of course, the monkeys are wild, and
the monkeys.
You see pigs now. Wild pigs, and sometimes you see wild goats and other wild animals that are trespassing on farms and doing some sort of damage to crops and so on. What is being done with respect to that?
Let's put it this way. Yeah, the main challenges are monkeys and pigs. Once I got into office, we did recognize that monkeys and pigs are such a big problem. And right away, we set about to lobby government to allocate sums of money specific to that. Because the problem is of such intensity. If you just use your normal resources, you wouldn't be like contingency funds, maybe $10,000–$15,000, you would not be able to have any great impact. And when I got into office, monkeys were managed using monies from ALBA, right? But I got into office at the time when that money was closing off. By my second year in office, it had closed off. Most of the ALBA funds had been exhausted. Whether accountability may be in a different matter, but the funds were exhausted. And once that had closed, then there was no funds. So about a good 2-3 years, no specific set of funds. Here's where we went to our government, especially in December in the budget discussions, and we asked for a dedicated program to manage monkeys. You know, we're back and forth a couple times, and we got into a stage where by the end of 2018, government, I think, saw the value in our program, and funds are dedicated. So right now, government has accepted a project that we have put forward valuing $1.2 million for monkey control, and in this very year they have already made available $750,000. So a lot of the problems that we have, we're now in a position to do something about it. There is money, and so we could facilitate judicious trapping, we could facilitate selective shooting, using scare gadgets, using deterrent facilities, electric fences, so that going forward in 2020, we expect to be able to report that we are doing something very tangible in terms of monkeys and pigs. So let the country understand that this is a work that was in progress for a good year or two, and now we are reaping the results, and that all you need to do is to contact your extension officer. You know, a lot of homeowners would want assistance. We will consider them as well, but I think we really designed the program for our farmers. There's a misconception in the country that the Department of Agriculture is responsible for the management of monkeys. I don't think that is so. We are one of the groups that are mostly affected, and we're one of the groups that cried out first and foremost. And so we champion the cause. But really and truly, it's a wild species. It really should have been looked after from another ministry. Be it as it may, we will even seek to help others. But we want people to understand that our main thrust really should be to our farmers. And we're going to use this money to help the farmers. So what we're going to do, especially when your crop nearing harvest, and you have a bunch of solitary monkeys there, you contact your extension officer and you will get the details, whether we're going to send a trapper, somebody with darts or whatever, but we will seek to take them out. It's not about extinction, but just enough so that people can farm successfully.
Is there any idea in terms of the population of monkeys on the island? Some people say they outnumber human beings. Is that so?
Well, okay, I'll put it this way. We've had a study done by a population biologist, I'll put it that way. He was from Cuba. He put the population in Nevis at 8,000 and the population in St. Kitts at 15,000.
Okay, working for you, good afternoon.
Hello.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yeah, I'm back.
Yes.
Yeah, I like the two ideas that Mr. Agriculture gave me village up with the electric fence, and then you trap them, you say dart them or whatever. But I don't think to kill the monkey, them need that all the kind of money what the government put in it here. Because all they need to get is maybe 5 shotgun, scatter shotgun like how they used to have them. You give Navy's 2 and you keep 3 down here and you got good shooters up the army. Let it go around by the people them ground. And when you let go between at one, you're going to catch 3 because monkey don't separate individually by themselves. Slowly but surely we will get the population going. We're not going to wipe them all out. But no load of money supposed to spend to kill them. They're easy to kill. Look, last week they over here in front of me in my neighbor yard. He had about 5 of them. I don't know what they were contemplating, but they were there and the corner between them. And I managed to leg a stone across the gut and I catch the corner, knock him, he jump up in here and he drop. And when he get up, I hear him tell the rest of them, quarter John till next week. And then you see them again.
You see them again.
Yeah,
well, you know they left for but you they come up by me?
I believe so. Because they ain't come back, eh? Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, what you say?
I said they left by you and they come up by me.
Alright then, do like me. Okay then.
Yeah, yes, thanks. But you see, the linking the money and the population, because you see our view is that it's more than that number, 15,000 in St. Kitts. The population generally have rejected that number. And in fact, we have another scientist who is doing some other work and who has a different method of estimating. Remember, these are estimates because, you know, you have to come with certain parameters. There's another method of estimating. And so far, this new method is coming up more around like 60,000. And a lot more people are comfortable with that. So linking that with the money, we think that it's higher numbers. So you may have to put in a little more money. But of course, we're not wasting the money. If we don't spend it all, but we're able to protect the crops, fine. We'll keep it, do something else with it, or, you know, have some other studies done with it. So not because it's a particular sum. I'll tell you what, in the meeting yesterday, there's some persons who felt like, hey, that's not enough money. So there are varied views. But for me, let's look at the optimistic part of it. We have some funds, we're going to start, and we're going to try to be as impactful and as economical as possible.
You know, why are the monkeys coming down from... Once ago, they used to stay up in the mountains and so on. They can't find enough food up there now. So they're coming down to the lowlands. That in itself tells you something in terms of, you know, the production of... food production.
Yes. There are many things. One of the theories have said that...
Working for you, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon again, Leslie.
Good afternoon.
Leslie and Mr. James, you all don't wait till the people eat off all the things, you know. Culture is so right. What do you mean? Street people understand nothing? Make the army go in the different areas where the farmers them go and shoot the thing them and feed dog and so. You can't let these guys just what I got some partners in the mountain and they say they willful, you know. They will just watch a thing of cabbage and just bite up and go. And come on, he can't work so. These guys work hard. And I calling in Mr. James to ask these farmers to be a little lenient with people who buy in the provisions. They're terrible. I mean, you can't let people coming to think it's doing farming and just drive a pound of pumpkin for $5 a pound, $6 a pound. That's how think it's me. They come like we got open back tobacco. Mr. James, you all up there. Something should attach to you where you could go around and deal with these farmers. It's terrible. So what you mean poor people can't eat from gun provision? That's why all these people are running China and add their children to China. That's why the place is so obese. Dr. Martin is so right. Man, come on, man. We got to get this thing right. This is 2020. When it gonna be?
Jam down.
When we gonna start to do something? 2040?
Yes, okay,
Well,
jam down.
that's why.
Okay, right.
You know, Mr. Manners, you know, we deal with producing the things.
We have another call.
The selling thing is more consumer affairs thing, though.
Yeah. Working for you, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon, King.
Yes.
Thing, you know, we can't do the monkey thing right, because the monkey thing right. You know, the reason the monkey come down tongue? Because is knocking in the mountain now. And I got to try to remember that. People working doing farming, they're trying to keep them off. But they're coming down the village. And I got to try to remember that. I cannot keep them back out. Monkey live with our way. Monkey walk in your house. Remember that. All right, have a nice afternoon.
Okay, thank you for that
No, but that's very true.
input.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would just like to make this contribution because something happened very importantly sometime last year where national security found it fit to have an officer working closely with the department, meaning that they are looking at agriculture, feeding the country as part of national security. Food security now is becoming part of the national security. So, hoping that things like the monkey control and so on is information that can go back to national security so that they can help. They mention about army going and shoot, whatever. They can work from that aspect to help us, because they are looking now at food security being part of national security, which is a big plus. Come back to the linkages that we have to make. We alone. I mean, of recent, the tone and the conversation, it was like we against them or them against us. We got to find some way of it's everybody thing. Honestly, we're not really here to hurt the farmers or any such way. We're really trying as hard as possible. And I'll tell any government, that is their role. So we need to change the tone that as soon as something goes bad, they start looking at the department, and we must change that tone, and it's us, all of us are involved. And I'm so happy that national security see it fit that food security becomes part of it.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Chair, the gentleman made a good observation about the absence of sugarcane. Again, there was a third specialist who was operating out of Nevis. He's there for a number of years. He's from South Africa. And that is one of the things that he recognized, that you need to have food up there in the hills, or else they will come down. So in our case, it would have been sugarcane, those planted in the higher areas, and also fruit trees.
That was damaged by the hurricane.
Yeah, and one of the things that we're saying is that a lot of the fruit trees were blown down by the hurricanes, and so there's less up there. So if we either that, we're going back up there and plant some.
Which will stay years.
Because one of the things the gentleman in Nevis, when in his studies, what he did, he gets some areas where he encouraged monkeys to come by putting up like a table, and he'll get all the fruits from a hotel, like the not so top class fruits, and he will throw them there every day. So afterwards the monkeys get accustomed that, look, if I come here I'm going to get food. And so if the belly full, there's no need to come in your ground. They know well where I'm going to get food. So he had this program going in Nevis where he assisted the farmers by having these feeding stations where the monkeys come, they're going to find food, so they don't have to go. And I'll tell you something in addition to that. Here how you could control them additionally like that. Because they're coming there to eat, you can have some kind of sterilization substances in the food, right? Where when they eat it, or inject in kind of way, maybe in the liquid, it depends on the different forms in which they come in. When they take it in, it affects the virility, it affects the fertility, and they will either produce less or none at all. So that it helps to cut back the population. So one, you're protecting the farm. Two, you're cutting back on the population. And so you're achieving your goals in more than one way.
Okay, you spoke about your annual review and so on. Now, what is it that you have on your agenda for your work program for 2020?
We have a couple major things. One of it is monkey control. The other one is the goat breeding and tick control. I'm going to ask Mr. Berry if he can give the listening and viewing public some insight into what we're hoping to do with our farmers as it relates to the goat program in this year.
Sure, and we continue. The government, in collaboration with Ross University, brought in some improved goats, they're bow goats, both male and female, so that we can have purebred down the road. The objective is to cross the purebred bow goat with our local animal, so that we can increase production, as we mentioned earlier. We're operating out of a private farm because it's challenging for us to run it from the government yard that we have the animals in. What we're doing is that we would go out, we would select the females from the farms. Having identified the females, we would ask the farmer to remove his ram, because we don't want his ram now to make those. We would scan the animal to make sure it's not pregnant, because we don't want to. Well, the following step after scanning the animal, we would synchronize the animal with a hormone to bring it in heat. So if the animal is pregnant and you go and do that, well, you'll cause the animal to abort. So we scan the animal, make sure it's not pregnant, and then we would select that one to be bred. We would bred all the animals at one time for that farm that we're going into the program. So all will come into heat at the same time. We will transport them to the farm, have them mated, allow them to stay with the ram for about 10 days, and then take them back to the farm. We also come in with support that we would do things like worm the animals, worm the offsprings up to a certain time, up to 4 months, so that we know the animals are healthy. We would, down the road, ask the farmer, because the animals belong to the farmers, except that we're asking the farmers, after every 10 lambs, can you give back one? So that we, the government, can do what we want with the ram if we're going to give it to a next farmer, so that we can, the objective is to spread that sort of increase in production around the island as fast as possible. And we'll also ask the farmers to sell the ram offspring. Why sell the ram offspring? Because we don't want the ram offspring to come back and mate his sisters. So they hold the females so that we can use those as mothers, but we don't want him to come back and mate his sisters or mothers. So he come back to inbreeding, because we would be going back to where we were in terms of stunted growth.
Right. Dr. Challenger, we are out of time really, but what advice would you give to farmers in terms of animal care? How they should really care for their livestock? General advice.
Well, general advice would be to keep your animals healthy. Animals need to be dewormed, and the frequency of the deworming depends on how infested the farm is, whether the animals are roaming or they are on paddock. So that's one. They have to deworm the animals. They have to make sure the animals have water, access to water daily, not every other day or every 3 days. When animals don't get water because of their stomach, the structure of the stomach, the food, they can suffer from impaction.
Clean water.
Right? Yeah, they must have access to clean water. Okay, a lot of them, they give the animals water, but the water is dirty, or the container that they used to give the animal water is very filthy. Okay? So, clean water is important. And daily. So that's deworming, clean water. They need to give the animals minerals and vitamins. We sell that at the department. We have the mineral and vitamins block that we sell at the department, so they can come there and purchase it. Okay. We also have the powder that they can throw in the drinking water to give the animals. So that's deworming, clean water, vitamins and mineral, and of course the foraging. They have to have good foraging. Okay. So those are the main things that they would need to do, and the animals would keep healthy, you know.
Do you have clinics? Does the Department of Agriculture have clinics for animals?
Yes, we offer an ambulatory service where a team goes out every day to treat animals, but the farmer will have to call. If they have a sick animal, then they will call and we'll take the information from them, and if we're not able to respond to them the same day, we respond to them the next day. If it's an emergency and we get the call during the working hours, we will go that same day.
Sure.
And to deal with that.
Okay.
But it has to be that part of the operation is by appointment, because we do not know if the farmer has sick animal or when he has sick animal. So they have to call us and let us know what is happening, and then we will go out and treat.
Okay. What's the number for the department for them to call?
465-2110.
2110. Can they also use email or anything like that to contact you?
No, we don't really use email, but they can also contact the vet personally on their cell phones.
Okay.
So Dr. Henry's number is 662-4887, and my number is 663-4505.
Okay. Mr. James, you're out of time. Is there anything you want to say in closing?
Oh yes.
I'll give you a short time to.
Thanks
to
for
up.
having us. I trust that the farmers were able to be enlightened and enthused. We are in a period of, I think we see some frustration, some hostility with some of our farmers. I mean, you know, especially livestock farmers, they have suffered some losses. I do sympathize with them. I think it also gives us the opportunity to try and see how we can improve our agriculture. Yes, we have a program going right now where we're going to be helping them to control the tick and thereby the disease. But I think we also need to use this as an opportunity for improved standards. I look forward to policymakers, the government, as we seek to improve the way we do agriculture, carry it up a notch, so that it could be a lot more modern, better organized, and that we could get more benefit from it. I would hope that these lessons learned in these difficult times would inspire and instill us to make good moves in short order.
Mr. Berry.
A few years back when I joined the Department of Agriculture, I met one of my old farmers. He told me that there won't be any changes in his lifetime. And you know, my response to him, I'm afraid to say, but I said, if there's no change, because I looked at his age and my age, I said maybe it's best that my mother did not bring me, because I can't see myself passing through without making a change. I want the farmers to understand that it's not we against them or them against us. We have to find a tone, a way of communicating in general with all these stakeholders that are involved, private institutions, the farmers and everybody, to really execute production on a whole in St. Kitts.
Dr. Challenger, I know you had the final word. Would you like to say anything else?
Well, I would just like to urge the livestock farmers to cooperate with us, especially with this program, the tropical bun tick and the dermatophytosis control programs.
Right, okay.
We're having some challenges with that program in terms of we're not being able to contact the farmers. We'll be calling, we're not getting them, and those that we get, they'll say they don't have any time. They have to go to work and stuff like that. So I'm really urging them, in order for the program to be a success, they will need to cooperate with us. We really want to assist them. This program will help to reduce the exposure of the animals to ticks, and it will address the dermatophytosis concern that we have.
Okay, thank you. Well, I want to say thank you to all three of you, Mr. Berry, Dr. Challenger, and Mr. James. Thank you so much for coming on today's program and sharing with us such a crucial part of our own national development, that of agriculture, food security, the importance to our economy, the importance to health, and so many other areas and so on. Thank you very much. You have been listening to another edition of Working For You. Thank you to all our listeners and our callers to today's program. Next week, we will be back for another edition of Working For You. Until then, I am Les Roy Williams.
Working For You. A weekly talk radio program which highlights developments of national interest and the activities of your St. Kitts Nevis government. Join host Les Roy Williams as he presents news, views, reports, and interviews about everything regarding the activities of the Team Unity government and the building of our communities and the development of St. Kitts Nevis. Tune in and call in to interact with your government and share your views regarding the upward forward development of your community and our beautiful Twin Island Federation. Working For You is weekly, every Wednesday live from 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. on ZIZ Radio, Win FM, and Sugar City FM with rebroadcast on participating stations. Working For You.